Hi there. Hello, everyone. I'm CGTN Sun Ye, and we're coming live to you from China's Science and Technology Museum. This is the Space Hall, and we were actually starting from a launch pad model. But you would already know what we are going to do today. Today, we are going to revisit the biggest moments for the Shenzhou-13 crew. The three taikonauts went up in the sky almost 6 months ago in October, actually on October 16th, 2021. And very soon they will be back here on Earth. And we are going to look at their life, how their life is over the 6 months. And the reason we chose this place, the Science and Technology Museum, is that we actually get the best hands-on, on-the-ground experiences from their exhibits. Many of them are real ones. And we also have one of the best curators and explainers we can find here in the capital city. Today, we are very, very honored to have Miss Gao Mengwei. Miss Gao is here. If you've been watching some of the things the taikonauts are doing, you would be very much familiar with her. She is the co-teacher on the last space lesson given from China's space station. She's the co-teacher on the ground. She not only knows everything about science, space science, she's also very much familiar with what the taikonauts are doing and what they have done means. So thank you so much for joining us, Miss Gao. 我先给我们打个招呼。
大家好，我是高梦伟，来自中国科学技术馆。那非常荣幸，我参加了上一次太空授课。那作为地面课堂教师呢，跟大家一起学习了一些知识。那今天将由我带领大家来转一转我们中国科技馆的太空展区。那带领大家了解一下，那跟我们的航空航天、跟我们的载人航天工程有关的一些展品。那希望大家有空的时候来我们这里参观。
Okay, at the very start, Ms. Gao is extending a very warm welcome to all of you. If you have a chance, come to this space hall, and she will also tell you everything about China manned space program. But first, we'll start with at the very beginning about what Shenzhou-13 have been doing. We're starting from the launch pad. 所以我们回顾这个神舟13，它的这个任务应该就是可以从火箭发射开始。那我们一边看看我们这有的东西，一边请您介绍一下当时发射或者任何一次发射，它这个流程是什么样？我们可以看到什么？
好，大家可以先看到我们这边一件展品呢，叫做火箭发射。那它的背景是以咱们国家这个酒泉卫星发射中心为一个背景，模拟了这个火箭发射的整个过程。那像我们这些不能亲临火箭发射现场的人，可以通过这个来大概了解火箭发射是什么样子的。
Okay, so this is a mock for the Jiuquan Launch Center. Jiuquan Launch Center is the place where China's taikonauts, the Shenzhou-12, Shenzhou-13, they've been heading up to space. So in the first place, I would be explaining to you. Ms. Gao is putting up the rocket that sends up the taikonauts about there. 您拼装的这个是应该说是所有这个载人飞船上去会用的火箭。这个火箭有什么特殊的呀？
这个是神舟2F 火箭。那一会儿呢，大家可以观看这个我们的火箭顶部它有一个非常尖尖的。那这个呢是这个逃逸塔，那只有载人的火箭才有这个，因为它可以保护航天员的生命安全。一旦火箭发射出现任何问题呢，它可以带着航天员飞到一个安全的地方。这个是只有载人火箭才有的，其他火箭都没有这个结构。对。
Okay, as you see, this is a model for Changzheng 2F rocket. This is the kind of rockets that bring Chinese taikonauts up there, and you can tell it is the rocket for manned spacecraft. From the outlook of it, Ms. Gao has said, if you can see, there is a little pointed spike at the very top of the rocket. That was used to make sure the taikonauts have a chance to escape. It's called the escape tower of the rocket. So if they are anything an emergency happens, they will be able to escape. And only this kind of rocket has that installment. We can tell from afar this is a rocket for manned space mission launch. And again, this is a model that is trying to simulate what happens in Jiuquan, a real launch center in Western China. 这是在西北哈，酒泉，应该周围都是戈壁。
对对对，周围就是因为这个为什么在酒泉啊？就是因为它一个是周围这个人烟比较稀少，在这个戈壁滩嘛，可能进行这些就是对周围的居民影响比较小。再一个呢，可能我们先来观看这个火箭发射过程吧。它现在模拟一个倒计时的一个过程。
It's counting down, 2, 1, ignition. 所以 it's actually going up. 这是大家最喜欢看的吧，好神奇。
对，就是平常如果观众多的时候啊，这个时候这氛围会非常好，孩子们都会一起在这里跟着一起倒计时，然后发射的时候大家都会鼓掌欢呼。
So now we're coming live to you on a Thursday morning. Not too many students are free at this hour, but Ms. Gao says whenever, a crowd of students are here, they will be cheering, they will be clapping to the ignition and launch of the the Shenzhou spacecraft, and of course on a rocket that's the Changzheng-2F. But picking up from where we were talking about, Ms. Gao was saying that this is a mock of Jiuquan, a Gobi desert chosen for a launch center, and she said it's because it's a vast expanse of land that would make sure that the launch has enough space and is safer.
对，就是可能对居民的影响比较少，因为没有什么人嘛。第二个就是可能因为火箭最开始它是这个两弹一星，它是从导弹过来的，所以那个时候其实这些项目很多它都是保密的。当时很多的工作人员到这里来从事这项工作的时候，可能家人都是不知道的。所以呢，再选在了这样一个地方。
Again, she explained that Jiuquan, the place that you have seen the Shenzhou-13 blasted off into the sky, was a place that used to also manufacture missiles, and that was a place kind of secretive years ago. So that's in northwestern China, and that's also the place where we will probably see the next Shenzhou cruise going. 其他的，我们比如说神舟14、15的火箭，它要发射的话，也是从那儿。
对，因为酒泉就是所有的载人的任务，它都是用这个神舟2F 发射的。因为目前我们国家只有这一款火箭可以发射这个载人的神舟飞船。那 2F 呢，它就是在酒泉，所以所有的这个航天员他们都是从酒泉进入太空的。
所以这更应该是个圣地巡礼的地方了。So Ms. Gao was saying that was not only the place that Shenzhou-13 crew, the 3 taikonauts, last year in October went up in sky. This is also going to be the place and the kind of rocket that will bring Shenzhou-14, 15, the rest of Shenzhou crew, because that's the kind of rocket that's, as we said, able to bring up people up in the sky. But as we go along with the timeline, after the launch, a few hours later, the taikonauts, at least the Shenzhou-13, they went up in China's space station, and we are at, this is not China's space station mock-up, right? 然后我们就到了另外一个地方。
对，然后现在我们面前大家可以看到这组非常大，这是一个组合体，它是这个神舟飞船和这个空间实验室组合的一个模型，一个1:1的模型。
1:1的模型。
对对对，这个它不是咱们现在这个天河核心舱，它是之前的这个天宫实验室。天河核心舱比这个还要大很多。那这个是天宫实验室和这个神舟飞船对接的一个模型。
所以那个神舟飞船原来就在那个火箭上，
对，
对接上了这个天宫实验室。
对对对。
Okay, this is this is a real-size mock for a Shenzhou spacecraft and a Tiangong space lab. Now, Tiangong space lab is not where Shenzhou-13 crew are at, but it's similar. We have 2 Tiangong missions before. 这个天宫实验室实际上也是我们之前其他航天员待过的地方。
对对，之前在这个天河核心舱之前，我们发射了这个天宫1号目标飞行器，还有这个天宫2号这个空间实验室。那 在里面呢也进行了许多的这个空间实验，在这些实验的基础上呢，然后去年我们又发射了这个天河核心舱。
其实，在天河核心舱里面做的事情哈，跟我们在天宫做的是有很多延续和相似的地方。
对对，它们的功能基本上都是一样的。就是天宫实验室，它也是一个航天员可以在里面工作生活，就是进行空间实验的一个地方。那当然，这个天河核心舱它的这个功能更强大，携带的这个实验器材更加的种类多样，功能完善。
So we will be going into this space lab. This is not Tianhe core module where you have been. If you were like me, you'll be hearing all about it in the past year. But this is where a mock-up of where Chinese taikonauts have been in the previous expeditions in space. And in this kind of capsule, Chinese taikonauts will be experimenting, living, working, and afterwards, we'll go inside and we will be showing you what Chinese taikonauts have been doing there. And this is pretty much relevant to what Shenzhou-13 group has been doing. 我们继续问一下高老师啊，就是神舟13他们当然在他们舱里的情况跟这个不太一样，但是构造或者说它的元素是差不多的，对不对？
对，就是其实它们内部的构造也是比较相像的，就是包括大家可以看这侧边啊，有很多一个是各种的通讯的器件，各种按钮，就他们进行比如说天地通话，还有他们一些监测的一些设备，包括这边有这个舷窗。然后我们这边还模拟了一些，这个是抓手，这个是他们看里面的这个视频上，他们在太空中飘来飘去，所以他们需要一些东西来固定自己。
Okay, so well, you will see that was a video of 3 taikonauts that there are simulating their life there, and maybe we should start from the floor. They're marking something to grab on because no gravity there. But Ms. Gao, let's start from here and tell us what everything is. And do Shenzhou-13 crew have the same thing? 我们要不就看看这个实验室里有些什么，然后是不是都跟神舟13就是他们经历的一样？
应该是比较相似的。这边看到的是一个，这个我也。就是可能是一些就是他们的
图吗？
对他们的一些飞行的轨迹，包括刚才看到有他们的这个航天员各项身体指标的监测，这些应该是每一个比如都会有的，比如说这个各种环控声保，
这个声保就是他们自己这人体的状态。
对，这个成员系统他们的一些心率啊、血氧饱和度的一些监测，来对这些。肯定是每一个太空任务他们都会有的。
这个指数都是特别健康的指数，是吧？
应该是吧。
那高老师，我们再把刚才那个声保指数调出来，好不好 ？So Miss Gao was
自动循环的。
So Miss Gao was saying this is the kind of things. Well, the Shenzhou-13 crew would be seeing every day. In the first place, this is a video map of where the capsule is. You'll see this some map, and later we'll be seeing. That will be in Chinese. That was a system that monitors taikonauts' well-being. You will be seeing their oxygen level. Oh, this is where this is the oxygen level, and blood pressure, and heart rate. This is taikonaut 1, 2, 3. So this is a mock-up of a three-person manned mission. 声保系统。神舟13也有，之前的也有。
对，
然后
这个因为可以看到，比如说舱内的压力、氧气分压，这个就是保证他们的这个就是一些生命保障吧，我理解是。
是这个。So that was the supportive or protective system that makes sure that taikonauts are in great shape. Well, in terms of their all kinds of indexes, and then this is the internet for taikonauts.
对，这个当然这是一个模拟的，但是就是它里面有一些声音，有声音是有声音的。
这是什么呀？
对对对，就是可以跟地面通话，包括我们的天宫课堂之所以能够实现，那也是因为这个天地通话的这个的链路畅通，所以我们才能跟航天员去进行对话，来实现这样的课堂。
Okay, that was the link in orbit and for on Earth. Well, Miss Gao is saying, well, you remember she's the teacher, on-the-ground teacher for China's space stations, space lessons, and she said her lesson was possible also because of this link between the taikonauts in orbit and us on the ground. And just a while you were seeing President Xi Jinping was giving a call to taikonauts while in the footage. And then let's go to the next part. Are they real? 这是真的吗？
这是假的，但是这个是航天员他们会在太空进行的一些实验，就植物生长的实验。就他们会带一些植物去到太空中，让他们进行生长，然后呢再带回地面来监测，就它跟正常地面上生长的植物发生了哪些变化。
这个是已经发生过的事。
对，这个是之前我们的航天员已经进行过。
Oh, this
他们已
is
经带了一些植物到太空中。
okay. This is showing an experiment that has already happened. Chinese taikonauts have already brought seeds and plants up in space and see how they fare. 所以生物实验，这实际上是从之前到现在，就中国航天员非常重要的实验任务。
对，是的，因为太空中它有很多的条件是跟地面不一样的，就像微重力、高辐射等等，这些可能都会对植物生长有影响。
微重力和高辐射，就是它们可能会变异。
对，是的，所以他们就是要研究这些。这个植物实验就是我们早就已经开始开展了。
我们可不可以再看一次它这个 ？Okay, so again, we're seeing a mock-up kind of experiment that already happened in Tiangong Space Lab. It's going slow. But Ms. Gao was explaining that Chinese taikonauts have been doing experiments that concern biology, plants, and see how these things grow. A lot because space is a very much different environment, and that environment with its microgravity and very strong radiation, those are factors that can seriously change how plants behave. And let's go to another, well, a meter away, we're seeing wholly different things. 这是什么？
这个舷窗，这个是那个航天员可以通过这个舷窗来观看宇宙的一个场景。
这个我们有很深的印象，因为他们很多人都拍了照片。
对，你可以看到他从太空中看宇宙这个视角真的是非常的震撼。
真的就是这个样子吗？
对，这个就是从太空中能看到的一些景象。
Wow, so you may want to look closely on this. 你们也许会想看一看这个舷窗里面，因为它拍摄的就是航天员看到的实景。If you look really closely, that was the window for Chinese taikonauts. Whenever they look out onto the Earth, they are seeing something magnificent like that, and it will see beside that little window there are cameras. 他们就是用这样的镜头就可以把太空的景色。
对，他们也可以拍，可以用来拍照，这些镜头是用来。
然后
这个也是可以，就是
也可以看进去。
对，这
就必须得亲自到这儿才能看到了。Okay, you may have a better shot in seeing from this telescope, I think, if you are here in person. Another magnificent show of the Earth, of the planet. And let's move to the other side. Oh, they're continue to work. Again, this is a three-man person. 我们这边是不是看到很多是健身柜？他说这都有什么？
这下面是一个这个航天员进行健身的一个器材，大家可以看到，就可能类似于跑步机一样的，坐在上面可以进行锻炼。那因为这个航天员他们在太空中没有重力的影响啊，会对他们整个身体产生非常大的影响，他们的肌肉会萎缩，就可能会变得没有力量，会萎缩。所以呢，他们需要每天进行至少2个半小时的体育锻炼。
So Ms. Gao was explaining this is something very, very important for Chinese taikonauts. Of course, the Shenzhou-13. This is an elliptical that's used to counter the zero gravity or microgravity situation. And market. She said they need to work out 2.5 hours every day on this to maintain that muscle. 2个半小时每天不能间断。
对，不能间断。
天哪，这个要求非常高。然后，哎，这边是什么？
这个是一个我们这个太空测质量的一个装置，在这个天宫1号的这个目标飞行器里面有这么一个装置，就通过一些这个仪器的手段来太空测质量。因为在我们地球测质量，我们是通过 F 等于 mg， 我们有这个重力加速度，但是在太空是没有的。对。所以呢，太空呢，他们就可能通过另外的公式 F 等于 ma， 然后测一个加速度。
这个我们在天空课上学过吗？
这个应该是之前的。
OK。
对，之前的这个大家可以去课后了解一下。
So, well, this is the place our science education, science lesson starts. This is another experiment done in China's Tiangong Space Lab before. That's before Shenzhou-13 crew went up. This is how we try to weigh things without use of gravity. And Ms. Gao says if you want to know how this works, look for her lessons before or come here in person. So that's another thing that's happened before in China's space endeavor, but we have more to come in this very tiny capsule. 然后我们会看到这个是，这也是衣食住行相关的。
对，这个是我们航天员吃的食物的一个介绍。大家可以看到，这个都是像什么宫保鸡丁、什锦炒饭，这个对，菠萝冻干，就其实还是非常的丰富的。这个有
他们真的都吃过。
对，这是他们就是航天菜单，他们菜单其实就是营养搭配各方面都非常的全面。
OK，
吃的非常的好。
我们先每个看看啊。So these are packets. You won't see what's inside, but these are what Chinese taikonauts have actually really eaten, the dishes that we brought up in space. This is chicken nuggets, Chinese chicken nuggets, I guess, and fried rice. We have pineapple, dried pineapple pieces. 这是相当于他们的水果了哈。And this is water and orange juice. 他说，就是他们在上面其实很难喝到水，这样的是吧？
对，他们的水都是要从袋子里挤出来喝的。所以我们可以看到他们的饮用水都是在这种袋儿里，通过一根管来挤出来。包括这个速溶橙汁，这个也是它应该是一些粉，然后再把水注入进去，里面冲成了这个橙汁，然后来饮用。
So you will see the watery, the liquids, they have a tube going inside. You can only drink it this way, otherwise it will go everywhere. 您之前还有讲过，就是他们当然是营养非常重要，但是太空上面能吃的东西其实是有非常严格的这筛选标准。
对，像太空食品，它有一些，比如说它不能掉渣。
不能掉渣。
对，要不然它也是会飘的，到处都是。所以它是有一些要求的。
没有饼干，可能没有饼干。
它有压缩饼干，但是这个压缩饼干跟我们吃的饼干肯定是不一样的。
对。So Ms. Gao was saying, well, you can also learn from the screen too, that what taikonauts eat has a kind of particular. Not only they are very nutrition conscious, they can only eat things that don't splatter around. So you don't have things that will have crumbs. Even if they have biscuits, their biscuits would not have those little crumbs. That's what they eat. 神舟13他们的这个相当于食谱，其实跟这个也是一样的哈。
对，我应该也是差不多的。反正现在的航天员的食谱就已经非常的丰富了。
衣食住行，然后最后一部分是一个
睡袋。对，这个是一个睡袋。就是他们呢，因为在太空中他们没有重力飘来飘去，所以他们是不像我们是能躺在床上，他们必须要把自己固定在这个睡袋里，对，他们才会有一个对才会有一个附着感，因为他们在舱里面可能会飘来飘去的，所以说一定要固定住。
那刚好可以看到里面有很多钩子什么的哈。
对
，So well. To start with, this is a sleeping bag for Chinese taikonauts, and you see this is well, a real one provided by China Astronaut Center. And one thing Ms. Gao is pointing out for us all is that they can actually be sleeping standing up because there's no real direction there when they're up in space, no gravity. So the most important thing for them to actually get a good night's sleep is to get a fixed position. You will see all those hooks that maintain where the sleeping bag is. 然后我们还看到，这是不是相当于他们的一个睡眠舱之类的？可能还有一些耳机什么的。
对，这个是像之前的时候，可能是在这样一个睡袋里。那通过第一次天宫授课，那个王亚平老师向我们展示了这个航天员生活的空间，包括也带我们看了他的那个座舱。对，他们现在的航天员，他们是每个人都有一个自己的小空间，可以在里面睡觉。我们看到王亚平老师上面还贴了自己的一些女儿的照片，对不对？现在他们其实都是有一块小空间可以来进行睡觉的。
So this is a standardized sleeping quarter for taikonauts before Shenzhou-12 and 13 went up. And if you were really interested in their personal sleeping quarters, you can go back and watch some of the footage sent back by the Shenzhou-13 crew. You'll even see the pictures, family photos of Wang Yaping, one of the Shenzhou-13 taikonauts. So again, this is a mock-up for a Tiangong Space Lab before. Well, she was saying this is beautiful, and let's take a final look at this. But as we step outside this mock-up Tiangong Space Lab, we go into two other big events happening over the last 6 months with the taikonauts. 我们实际上还知道，就是在这个天宫在天上在轨期间，我们这一次就是神舟13，他们是有2次的出舱任务。这出舱任务，比如说它的难度，然后还会有一些哪些构成？您也是可以介绍。
出舱的时候，一个是就是太空中没有重力嘛，首先他们是需要身上挂上一些保护的装备，一定要身上有这个连接绳固定在这个舱外的某个位置。然后再一个呢，他们穿的那个舱外航天服其实是非常笨重的。对，当时在我们第2课的这个现场有2套这个舱外航天服，大家能看到他们那个有一个面罩，然后基本上戴上之后那个头是不能转动的，
就是已经笨重到这个程度。
对，然后呢他们在这个袖子这个位置是有一个小镜子，这个镜子干什么的？他们身上的有一些部位的那个字是反着的，因为他们没办法低头看，所以他们通过这个镜子反射来看这些东西，所以真的是非常困难。
所以我们看不到舱外航天服，但是可以先看一个舱内的。
对对对。
As we walk around this Shenzhou spacecraft and Tiangong Space Lab module, Ms. Gao was explaining over the last 6 months, Chinese taikonauts, the Shenzhou-13 crew, they had 2 EVA activities as spacewalking. Now, this is a mock-up for the Spacewalk. Ms. Gao was just saying, I'm sorry we didn't come here earlier, that wearing this kind of space suit enables them to go out. This is essentially a smaller space capsule out there. And she said, one big thing about the spacesuit is that it's really chunky and hard to work with. It's so big of a hassle that it's very hard for you to move your hats. But our spacesuits are designed to let the taikonauts be able to see and sense their movements. 您是说在它这儿是有个镜子的，是吧？
这个没有展现出来。这个手腕靠上一点的这个位置。
但是这就是我们飞天舱外服长的样子。
对，这个飞天舱外航天服是我们国家自主研制的。那现在呢？当时翟志刚第一个出舱的，他穿的是第1代。那现在我们的航天员神舟13，他们穿的是第2代飞天舱外航天服。
都是很像的，是吗？就是至少颜色配色，我们这个红色是一直都有。
但是，好像据我了解，这个舱外航天服它有好几个不同的颜色，可能不同的航天员他们会穿不同的颜色。
翟志刚穿了第1代的，然后也穿了第2代的。
对。
So, well, if you look closely, well, it says Feitian. Feitian is the brand for Chinese taikonauts spacesuit when they're doing EVA activities. Right now, we have seen like 2 generations of this kind of spacesuit. Zhai Zhigang, you will remember from Shenzhou-13 crew. He is also the first person to do a EVA activity for Chinese taikonauts, and back then he was wearing a first generation Feitian spacesuit, and now there's a second generation spacesuit where the Shenzhou-13 crew, all 3 of them have done spacewalking in the last 6 months. And let's look at this. This is a real one. 我们看完了这个舱外的航天服，现在是一个舱内的，其实穿这个的就是中国航天员的标志了哈。
对，这个舱内航天服它其实就是一个比较舒适的一个，因为舱内的环境就是和舱外不一样嘛，所以他们就是可能就需要穿这样一套就是比较舒适的衣服就可以了。
Okay, so this is the uniform we are pretty much familiar with because we've seen so many of the videos posted from Shenzhou-13 crew in the past 6 months. Ms. Gao says it's comfortable and it's very typical of Chinese taikonauts. 我们一看这个就觉得是一个非常挺拔的模特啊，而且我们这边看到有个航天英雄榜。实际上，很多来这儿看的小孩儿，他们对航天员就是有很多的这憧憬和问题，是不是？
对，其实很多小朋友来到这边，他们就会问说，我也想成为一名航天员，怎么样才能成为一个航天员
？Okay, Ms. Gao is saying one of the most frequently asked questions for her over the years from all these people coming to this science center is that how can one become an astronaut, a taikonaut? 这个有答案吗？怎么能
这个据我也不是特别了解啊，但是可能据我理解，一个是首先要有很好的身体素质。对，因为我们看到航天员他们在太空中这个环境跟地面是完全不同的，所以他们要有很强的身体素质来适应这些太空的环境。第二个，他们肯定也需要这个很强大的一些专业知识，来在太空中处理应对许多的事情，包括在太空中开展实验等等。
Ms. Gao says, well, if you want to be, this is what, 这也是您就是经常跟来访的小孩子说的是吧？If you want to be a Chinese taikonaut astronaut like the Shenzhou-13 crew and the taikonauts before, in the first place, you need to be really good physically. You need to be healthy. You need to be able to withstand all those challenges. But at the same time, you also need to be professional. You want to be someone who is a good learner because you're going to do a lot of things out there. And that was a space hero billboard kind of thing you were seeing, one of the most popular exhibits here. Now, 我们刚才讲就是航天员，就中国航天员，包括神舟13，他们有经历很多的挑战，其中就除了这个微重力辐射，然后长时间在外工作，可能好几个小时这种这个出舱工作以外，其实当他们回来的时候，这也是很难的事情。
对，其实这个返回也是一个对他们来说也是一个很大的一个挑战。那一会儿呢，我们可以看到这个在我们的展厅里面有一个神舟1号返回舱的实物。那航天员们他们都要在这个返回舱里面来进行返回。那大家可以想一下，返回它是一个高速坠落的一个状态，所以说对航天员的身体也是一个巨大的冲击。
好，我们马上就可以看到。So we were capping up a little bit from what we were saying. Shenzhou-13 and other Chinese taikonauts, they're withstanding, they've been experiencing a lot of things in their time in orbit. For the Shenzhou-13 crew, they had a blasted off from the Earth, and then they had several EVA activities that's really tiring, wearing something that could only barely move their fingers, barely move their necks, and they have multiple work lined up every day. They have to do experiments. They have to do 2.5 hours of exercises every day to make sure their muscles stay healthy. But even if when they are coming back, the time when they're back, they are still going to face a lot of difficulties, and those difficulties we can kind of get a rough idea of it from looking at this real thing。您刚才我们继续说，就是其实从这个返回舱，我们这个是个实物，就可以大概了解到他们在回地球的过程中会经历什么，然后有哪些可能比较危险和困难的地
方。对，返回的过程，其实我们的大家可以看一下，这边有一个。这个我们的航天员他们几乎是以一个躺着的状态，对，然后
相当于
躺在舱里面这么小的一个空间啊，大概要容纳3名航天员，所以呢，他们的这个空间是非常的狭小的，然后在这里面呢，他们返回的时候啊，就是中间还要经历一段黑障，就是跟这个地面完全失去通信联系，对，这个是因为。多长时间
会跟地面完全失去联系？
完全失去联系，对对，这个具体的时长，
我们先翻译一下哈。So you were saying this is a re-entry capsule. This is the real thing coming from 1999 from Shenzhou-13. You remember we have Shenzhou-13 crew up there, and this is the re-entry capsule for the Shenzhou-1 spacecraft. And Ms. Gao was saying this is the kind of free entry capsule, the size of it, the makeup of it, similar to what Shenzhou-13 will be going through. The three astronauts, this is a mock-up video, will be lying down at the bottom of the re-entry capsule as they come back. And this is going to be uncomfortable, but that's the least of it, because Ms. Gao says another thing they're watching out for through the coming back process is that there will be a blackout period where the taikonauts cannot really communicate with the Earth. 您说的黑障这个期间，就是他们没法跟地面联系，
对，然后对，而且地面也不知道舱里面的情况，
So that was a blackout period that's really dangerous, because not only the taikonauts cannot reach out to the ground control center, the people at the ground control center watching them, people at the ground control center cannot see what's going on inside the capsule too. And the other thing I am curious is that they are certainly going to withstand very high temperature. 我们看这个模拟动画，其实还可以看到一点，就是这是一个很高，就是会有一个高温和燃烧，是吗？
对，我们可以看到，就是它表面它是有一个涂层的。那这边你可以看到啊，这边的涂层它已经燃烧掉了，这边还保留着一些。对，这个涂层呢，它在经历这个高温的时候，它会融化，融化的时候呢，它会带走一些热量，这样呢就会保证舱内不受这个高温的影响。
就是比较黑的是涂层还在，
对
对，已经燃烧掉了。
对对对。
The other danger to watch out for is the extreme high temperature, the heat that takes place when the re-entry capsule enters Earth. And if you're seeing, from your side, the silver side of this re-entry capsule already had heat-proof paint burnt off. So that's how hot the temperature would be. But if you see on my right-hand side, or the cameraman's right-hand side, you will see the remain of the blackened paint. The paint was painted or used to fend off extreme heat that will probably influence the capsule when it re-enters the Earth. 所以有一个黑障，有高温，但是我们这个返回的过程，最就是让人比如说揪心的，可能就是这2点了，是吧？
对对，可能就是黑障。然后其实他们返回的过程呢，进入大气层之后啊，快到地面的时候，他们会有4次拉出降落伞的过程，给它进行一个减速。我们可以看到这儿有一个洞啊，这个洞呢，它就是这个主伞降落伞的位置。从这个洞里面把这个降落伞拉出来，然后呢，再到快靠近地面的时候，有一个反推发动机，然后再进行一个反推，能让它安稳的落地。
OK，这个是我们神舟13回来的时候也可以看到的一个过程，有
对，对，他们的过程都是一样的，就是降落的时候，他们都是要有4次拉出降落伞，一步一步的减速，然后最后再有一个反推发动机，能让它平安的落地。然后包括这边还有一个圆洞，这个圆洞是打开了，然后旁边那个圆洞没有打开，它是一个备用的降落伞。如果这个主伞失效了，没有打开，然后旁边这个备用的降落伞它会打开。
Now, going forward a little in their return trip, which the Shenzhou-13 crew would be making in a few days' time, they're going to be coming back to Earth mid-April. They are going to re-enter Earth in a capsule like this, and the makeup of their capsule is pretty much like this. Ms. Gao was saying we're seeing 2 circles inserts there, and these 2 places are where parachutes are stored, and this one that is open already had the parachute used to slow down the re-entering process, and the other one that still has its cap on is a backup parachute. It is there to make sure whenever something happens, something bad happens on the other one, this one will be coming handy. And the parachutes and then the other mechanism that's used to slow down the re-entering process will make sure taikonauts come back home safe. And that's how Shenzhou-13 crew, the 3 taikonauts we've been seeing so much and wondering so much about in the past 6 months would be going through in the next week or so as they come back after their 6 months stay. 所以我们今天在科技馆这几个就是非常有意思的展品里面，大概其实回顾了神舟13非常重要的这个几个时刻哈，但是可能我们看到的只是可能很多技术上的，还有一些跟我们自己息息相关的东西，可能是在楼下。We'll bid a brief That's the first part of our live streaming process. This is happening in the space hall for China Science Technology Museum, where we're seeing the exhibits and the mock-ups and the real things coming from past China's space endeavors that show how taikonauts and Shenzhou crews go through in their stay in orbit. For the Shenzhou-13 crew, they are blasted off from the Earth in a Changzheng 2F rocket last October, on October 16th, 2021. And they then went into a space capsule, not too much unlike the one we went through. In space labs, they've also worked, lived, exercised, and done 2 EVA or spacewalk activities. And then, after 6 months' time, the longest stay for Chinese taikonauts, they are scheduled to come back in around a week's time, because they are set to be coming back mid-April in a re-entry capsule like this. Introducing all of this is Ms. Gao Mengwei. She's the co-teacher of a space lesson collaborated with the taikonauts in China's space station, and we'll be talking more about that later when we go downstairs in this museum, where we actually go to the underground classroom where all that space lesson took place. So we will go down now. You'll be watching you'll be watching some footage, some stories about what Chinese taikonauts, the Shenzhou-13 could what doing in the last 6 months. We'll see you again, I think, in 5 minutes. Let's go. Ms. Gao will go down with us. OK， 我们现在就到楼下去，我们去这个天文课堂。这个时候大家就可以看看我们之前的片子了。我们片子里面应该是有神舟13乘组他们之前的一些生活工作场景。是不是时间有点
Crisis education lectures can take place anywhere, including in low Earth orbit, with taikonauts as teachers. On June 20th, 2013, it was the first time China broadcasted a class from space. Wang Yaping was already the teacher then, as the Shenzhou-13 crew wowed more than 60 million Chinese students on the ground, as the crew demonstrated weightlessness with space moves, explained science with experiments, and rallied the students to dream big and dream far beyond the Earth limits. That was only the second lesson given from space ever. Before that class, Barbara Morgan, the world's first astronaut to teach in space in 2007, wrote this to Wang Yaping. "We are proud of you. China and all of this world are beautiful." Many have endeavored to educate students on the wonders of the universe. But the lesson on December the 9th last year took space lectures to a whole new level. As the Shenzhou-13 crew showed students around China's space station, which would be the taikonauts' permanent homing space and a national space lab. Wang Yaping said teaching from China's space station was a dream come true for her too. And as the commander-in-chief Zhai Zhigang bid the students on Earth goodbye, he asked them to dream and learn more about the space. One of the teachers facilitating the December class from the ground, Sun Weiqiang, said students have taken Commander Zhai's words too hard.
You see, students had their eyes glued to the trail in space. After the lesson, they all stayed on and asked so many more questions about what they just saw. You have to be really interested and put in some real thought to it. For us, it shows the lesson from space is good for them. We sense that the young generation who can be part of the space endeavor someday are showing their passion.
The Shenzhou-13 crew would have their second lecture on Wednesday before returning to Earth in April. But do expect many more space lectures to come from China's space station, which will be completed this year. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
So here I would like to show you two more equipments. So this is the high microgravity cabin. So in this place, it will provide an even stronger microgravity environment. I believe all of you are quite curious because in the space station, it is already in a microgravity environment. Why we want to build this another cabin to fulfill the needs of high microgravity environments. Actually, for the high microgravity environment, it is very important for us to do some research in physics. It is more precise for our research. For example, we could analyze some of the cold atoms, and also we can conduct a lot of high precision experiments. So all of these are basic research in physics. So you may be curious that even though this is quite useful, how we build this high microgravity cabin. So right now I would like to invite Ms. Wang to open the door of the cabin so you could learn more about this apparatus. So here we have an operation platform. Now I would like to open this door. So this is the operation platform. So you could actually do the experiment inside of the cabin or outside of the cabin. So we have two layers. In the outer layer, we are able to conduct some of the suspension experiments. By having the magnetic suspension, it could actually reduce the resistance in the air. This will help us to improve the level of the microgravity in the cabin. In the past, we actually done a lot of the magnetic suspension experiments with the scientists on the Earth. Please take a look. The experiment started. So now you could see I removed this operation platform from the cabin. In accordance with the ground control center, I try to stabilize this operation platform. Now let's see what happened. Do you see it? So even though this operation is interrupted by my movement, but still it could still work. But you may wonder why this experimental cabin knows where to go. In the door, you could see there is a matrix. So this is actually a benchmark for this operation platform. And behind the door, also it has like 2 cameras. So for all of these devices, it will help to locate this experimental cabin. Even though I moved the cabin a little bit, but for all of these equipments, it could actually identify the location for the cabin and then to make adjustments so that the cabin can move back to where it was. So for this double-layer magnetic suspension machine, it will help the scientists to do more research.
Hey there, welcome back. So we've just come back from the Space Hall upstairs on the 4th floor of China Science and Technology Museum, where we see and heard from exhibits about what China's taikonauts and especially Shenzhou-13 crew have been doing. And we cover a lot of grounds there, but now coming downstairs, this is a place that we can't really miss when we recount and remember what Shenzhou-13 crew have been doing. We are actually at the place that of the China Space Station's lessons given by the taikonauts and teachers on the ground. And again, we are joined by one of the on-the-ground teachers, Mr. Sun Weiqiang, and he is going to tell us all about the lessons that thousands, millions of Chinese students watched twice in the last 6 months. And he is going to showcase for us this magnificent one real-size China Space Station's Tianhe core module. We'll get into that in this second half of the live streaming. I'm really kind of excited to see what this thing is like. 再次谢谢您啊，就是孙老师，我们之前已经见过好几次了，但是还是先跟我们打个招呼。
Hello， 大家好，我是太空授课的地面课堂教师孙伟强，各位观众大家好。
So again, Mr. Sun, he is another of the on-the-ground teachers who was there at the China Space Station's live space lessons that took place twice in the last 6 months. As we walk around here, let's start a little bit on that space lesson. 我们其实知道这个天宫课堂有很多很多的这个小朋友、中小学生等等都在看。您可以先给我们大概讲讲，说这个课程它的大概内容和您自己的经历吗？因为这真是一个可能有几千万小孩在看的事儿。
对，我可以简单说一下，因为现在太空授课开展了2次，但是2次的目标是不一样的。我们第一次呢是面向的是以小学生为主，第2次呢面向的是以中学生为主，所以说2次授课的对象是不同的。所以说呢，对于孩子来说，对于比较小的同学来说呢，我们可能更多的是大家看到天宫空间站我们这样一个国家级的空间实验室能够展示的一些神奇的现象，这些现象是和我们地面是不一样的，所以我们是说天地之间现象背后不一样，但是是同样的科学原理，这是我们第1堂课的主题。
OK， So Mr. Sun was saying there are two space lessons that his team and Chinese taikonauts in orbit collaborated together. The first one took place in December, and that was for primary school students. And that lesson was made up or designed to show the students the difference between in orbit and on the ground, and that's how they designed the lesson. 然后第二节课就是其实很近了。
对，第二次课呢，主要是面向的是中学生。那对于小学生来说，我们更多的是激发兴趣的。中学生呢，更多关注空间站到底能做什么。所以我们看第一节课呢，我们看航天员会展示空间站的结构。对，我们第二节课更多展示我们空间站能够做什么。所以我们第二节课主题是小科学的现象背后的大道理。
Okay. So the second lesson was not too far back. It's on March 23rd, I think a little over a week ago. Still here, the on-the-ground session of that lesson was here in China's Science and Technology Museum. And that second class was designed and taught for middle school students. And Mr. Sun was saying that second lesson was kind of a step forward from the first one because it was aiming to show the students what the space station can do. What is it capable of? 我们是可以从一些实验里面体会到你刚才讲的东西，是吧？
给大家准备了一个道具，因为我们在这次的课程当中，因为是在科技馆，我们特别强调的是互动，所以我们说天地之间是有不同的现象，一定要让同学能够感受到。所以我们在地面上准备了很多的教具。那今天呢，我就拿了其中的其中一个部分。对。
Mr. Sun says he has the kind of props that will help us refresh our memories and relive that space lesson and understand how different it is between in orbit and on Earth. 这个是我们当时的一个实验，这实验是什么？
这是一个水油实验，我可以通过它来展示两个现象。我们可以看到呢，这个是下边是水，上面是油，然后在地面上是会产生分层的现象。如果我们快速把它晃起来之后，
这肯定都是这是我们的。
对，我们可以看到就混合了，天上就会一直保持这样的混合状态，但是在地面上它会很快的进行分层。这些分层呢，我们可以看到就是其实是由重力产生的。因为地面上有重力，所以才会产生这样的一个浮力，我们或者说是密度分层现象的消失。
分得很快。
对，地面上分得很快。
Okay, so what you are seeing, maybe we should shake it. 我们要不要再摇一摇，然后重现一下 ？This is one of the experiments that took place in March the 23rd, and on the ground. This is what happens on the ground, of course. It's a mixture of oil and water, and on the ground, when you shake it, these two mix and then separate pretty quickly, as we're seeing. But the taikonauts, 王亚平、叶光富、翟志刚, their same experiment where they mix oil and water together, their mixture did not separate. And that's one of the ways to show gravity, what gravity does. 所以这是一方面是显示这个重力的作用。
对，它另一方面是我们讲到了一个旋转的概念就是我们通过快速，就是在地面上很自然分层，但是在天上怎么分层呢？我们通过旋转的方式就可以让它进行分层。那旋转呢是利用了离心现象这样一个现象，但是离心现象背后是有很多的科学原理的，包括我们很多的大的科学实验装置，我们可以看到都是通过离心机来进行分离的。就比如说我们可以看到的一些液体的比如说我们做血液的时候，抽血的时候，就是通过旋转的方式进行分离，这是离我们生活比较近的再比如说在比较大的一些装置，比如说我们可以经常通过听说核燃料的浓缩，它的分离也是通过大型的离心机，当然是其中一种方式
所以这就是您说的这个基本的原理，但是可以做很大的事情。
我不知道大家看没看过一个电影，就是《2001太空漫游》，非常著名一个电影。我们可以看到大家。
待会儿讲这个电影，我先把这个讲完So again, back to that little experiment that took place on the ground and in orbit in that space lesson. Now, Mr. Sun was saying this simple oil and water separation experiment not only shows the use of gravity, but in space they also designed a way for them to separate it by using outside force. Now, Mr. Sun, was this simple experiment that they designed for in space and on Earth was aiming to show how very fundamental science principles and rules could really apply to much more and more difficult, more in-depth exploration in science explorations. 那我们就像您说的啊，就是其实对于这个第二节课，我们就是希望通过一些哪怕是很基础的原理，告诉他们我们可以在空间做很多的事情。那其实我们今年是可以知道，这个空间站要迎来很多很多新的变化，这也是课程里面有的。您是不是可以第一先给我们简单介绍一下，就是今年会发生什么事情？然后我们其实很有深意嘛，就是把这个小的原理用在未来的这个探索上面，其实就是相互延续的事情。我们可以边走边说。
OK， 我们可以看到，就是大家摄影师可以给我们看一下一个镜头，就是我们这样一个航天器呢，大概全长是16.6米，宽呢是4米多。其实这么大一个家伙呢，是我们未来空间站中只是其中一部分。我们今年还会发射2个和它一样大小的舱段上天，然后共同组成我们的中国空间站的3舱构型。这也是我们中国空间站的一个基本构型就基本建立起来了。
Okay, so wow, that's one of the things that amazes me when I first came here. Now, again, this is a module for the 天和 core module. This is a real size model, and it's 16米长。
16.6米。
And this is the length of it is 16.6 meter, and the core module we'll see is only part of China's space station. And Mr. Sun said within this year, within the year 2022, we'll have two other capsule, 2 other space labs that are almost of the same size of the Tianhe core module, the one you're seeing now. So 3 craft that are of similar sizes will be up there in sky as China's space station takes shape. 然后您刚才说到，其实上去的这2个实验舱，它们的作用其实就是做实验，是不是？
不一定是完全做实现，因为我们国家空间站未来是能够长期满足，就是能够满足6个人在轨同时需求的。我们可以看到现在是3个人，可以看到这边这个是小柱段，那小柱段呢，我可以看到有舷窗，这就是航天员睡觉的地方他们的小卧室就在这里。
真的，这就是我们对我们上面在看到过。Okay, if you look really closely, you'll see the tiny circle window. That's the window for the taikonauts to look out at their home. This is again a real size one, a real size model of the Tianhe module. And Mr. Sun was saying that by the end of this year, I think 2 sets of Shenzhou crew, so 6 taikonauts could be in China's space station together for a short period of time. 您刚才讲到，就是今年年底吧，可能有6名中国航天员同时在中国空间站的时候，然后到那个时候，这个中国空间站其实就是包括另外2个新上去的实验舱是比这个要大很多的。
那2个实验舱的大小和它是一样的。然后其中一个实验舱叫问天实验舱，它可以起到我们这是天河核心舱，可以起到天河核心舱一个备份的作用。同时呢，它也有一个相应的出舱的舱口和一个我们3位航天员睡觉居住的地方。所以说到时候我们会有6张床铺，也可以有6个人。这个呢是我们的大柱段，我们就是天河核心大柱段，也是我们现在主要的空间站工作的地方。这里边会有很多的一些实验设备，包括我们可以看到这次的无容器实验柜和那个高微重力实验柜都在这里。
是的，这就是我们这个从简单的原理，但是用到了非常高精尖的科技上面。Well, inside this part of Tianhe core module, there are experimental cabinets, and if you're interested in how those cabinets look like, go back to our live streaming lesson on March 23rd. Those cabinets are able to enable the taikonauts and scientists to do very high-level experiments, and those experiments come from I think, fundamental science principles, including those Mr. Sun showcased to us with the bottle of oil and water. 所以这个里面就是实验柜，就是这一部分。
在这里边，因为我们有一个很有意思的概念，就是天上是没有上下左右的，所以有的实验柜是在上面的，所以我们可以看到航天员是飘着，哎，我们感觉是横着，或者是在顶上的有一个实验柜，这是我们在地面上没法做的。这个舱可能会有，相对来说实验舱会少一点，实验柜会少一点。未来的梦天和问天实验舱他们会更多。对。
I'm going to correct myself. So Mr. Sun was saying you don't have directions, you don't have up and down, left and right, as we have here on Earth. So you really can't say that you have something. You have a cabinet on this side or that side. But this is the Tianhe module, and inside it, the real ones, they have experimental cabinets, the usage of which were shown in the last space lesson in March. 那我们这样走过来，也不能说是到它的就是也不好说是左右哪一边了，但是它的那个。我们可以介绍的东西是不一样的哈。
就我们可以看到，刚刚尾部过去的是资源舱，就是我们的货舱，一般都是从尾部进行对接的。我们现在天舟，对，天舟货运飞船是在尾部，就包括一些燃料的推进器，或者说是航天的补给物品，都是在尾部的。我们可以看到尾部的地方呢，也很多的一些喷头啊，就是它是一个发动机调姿的发动机所在的位置。
Okay, so we just passed that docking place for Tianzhou cargo ship. And we are here in the other side of the 天河空 module. 我们再结合这个天宫课堂我们教授的东西和我们实际上面这个中国空间站要做的事情，我们多讲一讲哈，因为今天课程内容非常丰富。
对，我们可以看到，就是我们在第一次太空授课的时候，航天员叶光富做了一个太空转身的这样一个动作。我们其实可以看到，如果把手伸起来，其实需要的空间还是很大的。我们这个大柱段呢，其实就提供了这样非常大的一个活动的空间。OK。
这是他们说的几室几厅，是不是？
就是它一个工作的地方非常大，就是我们可以看到，就是我们把手举起来，可以看到其实还是挺高的。对，我们可以看到原来的空间站相对来说的空间没有这么大。对，这是一个非常大的一个进步了。或者我们想啊，这是其中一个房子，我们还会有2个房子上去，是更大的一个活动空间。
Okay, so the other thing you may want to look back in is an experiment that Ye Guangfu, the taikonaut, did. He was showing a kind of force by swinging his arm, and Mr. Sun was saying, this is actually a very impressive kind of thing, even though no outside props were used, because it shows how big and spacious China's space station and the core module is. 所以我们其实展示那一个实验或者说是它就是这个其实没有任何教具的动作，也是很有意义，因为大家其实通过那个已经更了解我们的中国空间站。
这个实验本身是非常有意义的一个事情，就是虽然是一个很简单的转身动作，但是背后的科学原理是非常大的。我不知道您看没看到这边有几个大鼓包？
没有。
我不知道，就是大家注意没有？这是6个大鼓包，你知道里面装的是什么吗？
肯定不是空气。So while we're closing in on the several bumps, altogether there are 6 bumps outside of 天河空module，就不知道是什么。
你看我手里拿的是什么？
陀螺。
对。所以说，在这6个大鼓包里边装了和它一样的东西，就是陀螺。只不过这6个陀螺加起来的重量会比它重很多。这个6个陀螺大概有将近1吨重。
真的。
Okay. 是的。
So inside there are 6 I think much heavier mega size of this inside those bombs we were looking at, and altogether they weigh a ton. 这是拿来做什么？
其实我们可以看到，就是陀螺旋，不是，这是我们叫做一个动量、角动量的概念。就是陀螺旋转起来会有一个稳定性。我们在很多时候可以看到航天员把陀螺旋转起来往前一推，它会保持一个很稳定的姿势去往前去飞。如果我们可以看到这次扔冰墩墩的时候，它是绕着去转的，是因为陀螺在旋转起来会有一个稳定性，而这个陀螺的基本原理，这样一个定轴性的稳定性，在航天器当中是非常非常多用到的。就比如说我们
其实是相当于做一个平衡，就是等等，
保持它的一个姿态。
保持它的姿态。Okay, so well, This is again one of the little things that make big and very much useful in space. We have 6 of these inside those bulbs, and they are used to maintain a correct position or a better position for the space lab. 然后我们现在是到另外一端了，这个是
我们可以看到最前面的是一个节点舱，是一个球形的，它有很多的对接舱口。就未来我们的刚刚说到的实验舱，包括我们的神舟飞船，都是在这个舱口进行对接的。就这最前面的这个舱口，我们可以看到是一个花瓣造型的这样一个，它是一个对接口。我们的神舟12号就是跟在这边对接的。包括我们未来的2个实验舱也是通过它对接，然后再转移到两边的舱口上。
Okay, so we've come to another door kind of docking place that is really meaningful in the past endeavors. This is where Shenzhou spacecraft, Shenzhou spacecraft, and later the space labs will be first docking when they go up in space. And if you remember 20 minutes ago when we saw how Shenzhou-13 could travel from the Earth to the orbit space station, they actually started docking here. 所以我们相当于就是转了一圈，基本上了解了这个就是了不起的空间站它的构造和我们其实在那个天空课堂是怎么样解释它的构造、它的作用的。
对。我们刚刚说没有上下左右之分，但是呢，我们可以看到下面呢是神舟13号对接口。13这下面也有一个对接口，所以说我们可以，对，是我们可以有2艘神舟飞船同时与它进行对接，就是轴向一个，径向一个。
那您说就是年底有2个乘组在的时候，是不是就是？
对，2艘神舟飞船。
一个会对在这儿对
接，
一个会在那儿。
就是在下边这个对接口。
Okay, so Mr. Sun is further explaining what's going to happen in later 2022. 2 Shenzhou spacecraft will be docking the Tianhe core module together at the same time by the end of 2022. And one, as we saw earlier, will be docking from the horizontal direction, and the other from down there, even though it's Earth terms. OK, 所以我们我现在就更加明白了哈，就是这个天宫课程不仅是那个实验和讲解都很有意思，实际上它真的是一个让我们更加深入的了解核心舱也好，空间站也好，是和我们整个这个载人航天发展的整个历程，所以真的很有意义。我这样说对吗？就是总结这个天宫的课程。
对，我觉得是空间站只是人类，我们总是说我们的征途是星辰大海，而空间站只是我们征途大海当中的第一步。我们未来要去遥远的太阳系之外，包括我们去其他的行星，那空间站都是我们必不可少的跨越的第一步。
Okay, so Mr. Sun was further explaining to us how the space lesson that we refreshed, re-listened as we walk around the model for China's Tianhe core module, that it shows how China's manned space mission and endeavors in aerospace are stepping forward. And this is the time we welcome back Ms. Gao. So again, we're welcoming again Ms. Gao. She is one of the co-teachers on the ground for the space lessons given by Chinese taikonauts, the Shenzhou-13 crew, and a group of teachers like Ms. Gao and Mr. Sun on the ground. Both of them are from China's Science and Technology Museum, and they know everything, as you've seen today, about China's space station, our space development, the science behind it. And if you get Chinese, you will know they explain so much better than my brief translation. But I'm afraid this is all the time we have. But we do have one last minute where we hear what Miss Gao and Mr. Sun has to say. 我们转了一圈了，但实际上这真的只是这个科技馆，包括这个航天展览非常小的一部分。您肯定还有很多想跟我们说的，但是精简到一句话，您跟这个观众朋友还有我们有一些什么 必须要讲的事儿。今天，
就是我说一下我的感受吧，就是这次准备这个天宫课堂第2课，就是了解到了咱们中国这个载人航天30年这个发展历程，从92年立项开始，其实呢，我们立项的时候已经比世界上这些先进的航天国家，美国、苏联已经晚了好多，但是呢，你像60几年的时候他们就已经开始发展航天事业，那是我们到92年才开始这个载人航天，但是呢，我们这30年啊，我们的步子啊跨越的比别人更大，我们的速度比他们更快，所以呢，对，我觉得就是了解这些呢，可能大家也能感受到，就是我们这个航天人他们发扬的这种航天的精神，那也希望大家能够感受到这些，然后就是比如说好好学习啊，这个对，以后如果你们想当航天员的话啊，可以去了解一下，就实现你们的航天梦吧。
So Miss Gao was saying, well, whether or not you want to be a taikonaut astronaut or not, welcome to come here because there's so much more installed and could explain China's development in space science. She actually detailed the history. Well, she said a little of the history of China's very fast progress in manned space mission. And we have a whole lot of timeline and other exhibits, relics here in the museum to show you how fast China catch up compared with other countries in the development and what Chinese and everyone else needs to do if we want to push science forward more. 孙老师，我们也是要请您讲讲，今天可能我们这个直播到尾声了啊，有什么没来得及说，但是一定要说的。
其实亚萍老师在最后结尾时候会说一句话叫飞天梦永不失重，科学梦张力无穷。其实呢，我们对于科学的探索是永无止境的。那我们的空间站建成以后，它是2个基地，一个呢是国家的太空实验室，另外一个是青少年的重要的科普教育基地。那我想呢，对于青少年来说呢，你们的实验也有可能在将来的某一天在空间上自己能够实现。对于我们这些科研工作者来说呢，他们的很多的一些在地面上无法实现的实验呢，也可以在天上去进行。那我相信一定会有更多我们的实验结果的产生，对于人类对于太空的探索会更进一步，也会我们对人类的发展更进一步。
Okay, so Mr. Sun was telling us something more to look forward to when China Space Station takes shape and completes. China Space Station not only will be a national space lab where scientists from China and from around the world could have their top-notch experiments done. This is China Space Station is also going to be a learning center, a science education center for all the students, people willing to learn about space science. And she said, and he said, there is actually a chance for students to have their science projects go up there in China's space station. And there are a lot of possibilities, opportunities, as the taikonauts often say at the end of their lessons, that we will never lose steam in the quest, in the venture into outer space. 所以我觉得这是一个非常好的结束啊！就您也是讲到了说，科学梦永不失重。
对，
飞永不失重，科学梦张力无限。
好 So we'll leave you with that motto from these co-teachers on the ground who also taught for the China Space Station space lessons. 飞天梦永不失重。科学梦
张力无限。
Okay, so that's all from us from China's Science and Technology Museum, with that great hope that the dream, the steam for a venture into space station will never lose. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again. I'm Sun Ye in Beijing.